The wrath of Achilles is my theme. That fatal wrath, which in fulfillment of the will of Zeus brought the Achaeans so much suffering, and sent the gallant souls of many noblemen to Hades, leaving their bodies as carrion for the dogs and passing birds. Let us begin, goddess of song, with the angry parting that took place between Agamemnon, king of men, and the great Achilles, son of Peleus. Which of the gods was it that made them quarrel? It was Apollo, son of Zeus and Leto, who started the feud when he punished the king for his discourtesy to Chryses, his priest, by inflicting a deadly plague on his army and destroying his men. Chryses had come to the Achaean ships to recover his captured daughter. He brought with him a generous ransom and carried the chaplet of the archer king Apollo on a golden staff in his hand. He appealed to the whole Achaean army, and most of all, its two commanders, the sons of Atreus.
My lords, and you Achaean men-at-arms, you hope to sack King Priam's city and get home in safety? May the gods that live on Olympus grant your wish, on this condition, that you show your reverence for the archer god Apollo, son of Zeus, by accepting this ransom and releasing my daughter.
The troops applauded. They wished to see the priest respected and the tempting ransom taken. But this was not at all to King Agamemnon's liking. He cautioned the man severely and rudely dismissed him.
Old man,
he said,
do not let me catch you loitering by the hollow ships today, nor coming back again, or you may find God's staff and chaplet a very poor defence. Far from agreeing to set your daughter free, I intend her to grow old in Argos, in my house, a long way from her own country, working at the loom and sharing my bed. Off with you now, and do not provoke me if you want to save your skin.
The old man trembled and obeyed him. He went off without a word along the shore of the sounding sea, but when he found himself alone, he prayed fervently to King Apollo, son of Leto of the lovely locks.
Hear me, god of the silver bow, protector of Chryses and holy Scylla, and lord supreme of Thetis. Smintheus, if I ever built you a shrine that delighted you, if ever I burnt you the fat thighs of a bull or a goat, grant me this wish. Let the Danaans pay with your arrows for my tears.
Phoebus Apollo heard his prayer and came down in fury from the heights of Olympus with his bow and covered quiver on his back. As he set out, the arrows clanged on the shoulder of the angry god, and his descent was like nightfall. He sat down opposite the ships and shot an arrow with a dreadful twang from his silver bow. He attacked the mules first and the nimble dogs. Then he aimed his sharp arrows at the men and struck again and again. Night and day innumerable fires consumed the dead. For 9 days the gods' arrows rained on the camp. The 10th, the troops were called to assembly by orders of Achilles, a measure that the white-armed goddess Hera prompted him to take, in her concern for the Danaans whose destruction she was witnessing. When all had assembled, and the gathering was complete, the great runner Achilles rose to address them.
Agamemnon, my lord, what with the fighting and the plague, I fear that our strength will soon be so reduced that any of us who are not dead by then will be forced to give up the struggle and sail for home. But could we not consult a prophet or priest or even some interpreter of dreams, for dreams too are sent by Zeus, and find out from him why Phoebus Apollo is so angry with us? He may be offended at some broken vow or some failure in our rites. If so, he might accept a savory offering of sheep or full-grown goats, and save us from the plague.
Achilles sat down, and Calchis, son of Nestor, rose to his feet. As an augur, Calchis had no rival in the camp. Past, present, and future held no secret from him. And it was this second sight, a gift he owed to Apollo, that had guided the Achaean fleet to Ilium. He was a loyal Argive, and it was in this spirit he took the floor.
Achilles,
he said,
my royal lord, you have asked me to account for the archer king Apollo's wrath, and I will do so. But listen to me first. Will you swear to come forward and use your eloquence and strength to protect me? I ask this of you, being well aware that I shall make an enemy of one whose authority is absolute among us, and whose word is law to Achaeans. A commoner is no match for a king who he offends. Even if the king swallows his anger for the moment, he will nurse his grievance till the day when he can settle the account. Consider, then, whether you can guarantee my safety.
Dismiss your fears,
said the swift Achilles.
Tell us anything you may have learnt from heaven, for by Apollo, son of Zeus, the very good Calchis, in whose name you reveal your oracles, I swear that as long as I'm alive and in possession of my senses, not a Danan of them all here by the hollow ships shall hurt you, not even if the man you mean is Agamemnon, who bears the title of our overlord.
At last the worthy seer plucked up his courage and spoke out.
There is no question,
He said,
of a broken vow or any shortcoming in our rites. The god is angry because Agamemnon insulted his priest, refusing to take the ransom and free his daughter. That is the reason for our present suffering and for those to come. The Archer-King will not release us from his loathsome scourge till we give the bright-eyed lady back to her father, without recompense or ransom, and send holy offerings to Chryses. When that is done, we might induce him to relent.
Calchis sat down, and the noble son of Atreus, Imperial Agamemnon, leapt up in anger. His heart was seething with black passion, and his eyes were like points of flame. He rounded first on Calchis, full of menace.
Prophet of evil,
He cried,
never yet have you said a word to my advantage. It is always trouble that you revel in foretelling. Not once have you fulfilled a prophecy of something good. You have never even made one. And now you hold persecuting them because I refused the ransom for the girl Chryseis, princely though it was. And why did I refuse? Because I chose to keep the girl and take her home. Indeed, I like her better than my wife, Clytemnestra. She is quite as beautiful, and no less clever or skillful with her hands. Still, I am willing to give her up, if that appears the wiser course. It is my desire to see my people safe and sound, not perishing like this. But you must let me have another prize at once, or I shall be the only one of us with empty hands, a most improper thing. You can see for yourselves that the prize I was given is on its way elsewhere.
The swift and excellent Achilles leapt to his feet.
And where
He asked,
does your majesty propose that our gallant troops should find a fresh prize to satisfy your unexampled greed? I have yet to hear of any public fund we have laid by. The plunder we took from captured towns has been distributed, and it is more than we can ask of the men to reassemble that. No, give the girl back now as the gods demand, and we will make you triple, fourfold compensation if Zeus ever allows us to bring down the battlements of Troy.
King Agamemnon took him up at once.
You are a great man, Prince Achilles, but do not imagine you can track me in that. I am not going to be outwitted or cajoled by you. Give up the girl, you say, hoping I presume to keep your own prize safe. Do you expect me to tamely sit by while I am robbed? No, if the army is prepared to give me a fresh prize, chosen to suit my taste and to make up for my loss, I have no more to say. If not, I shall come and help myself to your prize, or that of Aias, or I shall walk off with Odysseus's. And what an angry man I shall leave behind me. However, we can deal with all that later on. For the moment, let us run a black ship down into the friendly sea, give her a special crew, embarks the animals for sacrifice, and put the girl herself, Chryseis of the lovely cheeks, on board. And let some counselor of ours go as captain. Aias, Idomeneus, the excellent Odysseus, or yourself, my lord, the most redoubtable man we could choose, to offer the sacrifice and win us back Apollo's favor.
Achilles the Great Runner gave him a black look.
You shameless schemer,
He cried,
always aiming at a profitable deal. How can you expect any of the men to give you loyal service when you send them on a raid or into battle? It was no quarrel with the Trojan spearmen that brought me here to fight. They have never done me any harm. They have never lifted cow or horse of mine, nor ravaged any crop that the deep soil of Phthia grows to feed her men. For the roaring seas and many a dark range of mountain lie between us. The truth is that we joined the expedition to please you. Yes, you unconscionable cur, to get satisfaction from the Trojans, for Menelaus and yourself, a fact which you utterly ignore. And now comes this threat from you of all people to rob me of my prize, my hard-earned prize, which was a tribute from the ranks. It is not as though I am ever given as much as you when the Achaeans sack some thriving city of the Trojans. The heat and burden of the fighting fall on me. But when it comes to dealing out the loot, it is you that take the lion's share, leaving me to return exhausted from the field with something of my own, however small. So now I shall go back to Phthia. That is the best thing I can do, to sail home in my beaked ships. I see no point in staying here to be insulted while I pile up wealth and luxuries for you.
Take to your heels by all means if you feel the urge to go.
Agamemnon, king of men, retorted.
I am not begging you to stay on my account. There are others with me who will treat me with respect, and the counselor Zeus is first among them. Moreover, of all the princes here, you are the most disloyal to myself. You, To you, sedition, violence, and fighting are the breath of life. What if you are a great soldier? Who made you so but God? Go home now with your ships and your men-at-arms and rule the Myrmidons. I have no use for you. Your anger leaves me cold. But mark my words, in the same way as Phoebus Apollo is robbing me of Chryseis, whom I propose to send off in my ship with my own crew, I am going to pay a visit to your hut and take away the beautiful Briseis, your prize, Achilles, to let you know that I am more powerful than you, and to teach others not to bandy words with me and openly defy their king.
This cut Achilles to the quick. In his shaggy breast his heart was torn between two courses, whether to draw his sharp sword from his side, thrust his way through the crowd and kill King Agamemnon, or to control himself and check the angry impulse. He was deep in this inward conflict, with his long sword half unsheathed, when Athena came down to him from heaven, at the instance of the white-armed goddess Hera, who loved the lords equally, and was threatening for them both. Athena stood behind him, seized him by his golden locks. No one but Achilles was aware of her, and the rest saw nothing. He was swung around in amazement, recognized Pallas Athena at once, so terrible was the brilliance of her eyes, and spoke out to her boldly.
And why have you come here, daughter of aegis-bearing Zeus? Is it to witness the arrogance of my lord Agamemnon? I tell you bluntly, and I make no idle threats, that he stands to pay for this outrage with his life.
I came from heaven in the hope of bringing you to your sense,
replied Athena of the flashing eyes.
It was Here, goddess of the white arms, that sent me down, loving the two of you as she does, and fretting for you both. Come now, give up this strife, and take your hand from your sword. Sting him with words instead, and tell him what you mean to do. Here is a prophecy for you. The day shall come when gifts 3 times as valuable as what you now have lost will be laid at your feet in payment for this outrage. Hold your hand, then, and be advised by us.
Lady, when you two goddesses command, a man must obey, however angry he may be.
Replied Achilles, the great runner.
Better for him if he does. The man who listens to the gods is listened to by them.
With that, he checked his great hand on the silver hilt and drove the sword back into its scabbard in obedience to Athena, who then set out for Olympus in the palace of aegis-bearing Zeus, where she rejoined the other gods. Not that Achilles was appeased. He rounded on Atreus once again with bitter taunts.
You drunken sot with the eyes of a dog and the courage of a doe,
he cried.
You never have the pluck to arm yourself and go into battle with the men, or to join the other captains in an ambush. You would sooner die. It pays you better to stay in camp, filching the prizes of anyone that contradicts you, and flourishing at your people's cost because they are too feeble to resist. Feeble indeed, or else, my lord, this act of robbery would prove your last. But mark my words, for I am going to take a solemn oath. Look at this staff. Once cut from its stem in the hills, it can never put out leaves or twigs again. The billhook stripped it of its bark and foliage, it will sprout no more. Yet the men who in the name of Zeus safeguard our laws, the judges of our nation, hold it in their hands. I could not choose a better token, and by it I swear that the day is coming when the Achaeans one and all will miss me sorely, and you in your despair will be powerless to help them as they fall in their hundreds to Hector, killer of men. Then you will tear your heart out in remorse for having treated the best man in the expedition with contempt.
The son of Peleus finished, flung down the staff with its golden studs, and resumed his seat, leaving Atreus to thunder at him from the other side. But Nestor now leapt up. Nestor, the master of the courteous speech, the clear-voiced orator from Pylos, whose speech ran sweeter than honey off his tongue. He had already seen 2 generations come to life, grow up, and die in sacred Pylos. And now he ruled the 3rd. Filled with benevolent concern, he took the floor.
This is indeed enough to make Achaea weep,
he said.
How happy Priam and Priam's sons would be, how all the Trojans would rejoice, if they could hear of this rift between you two, who are the leaders of the Danaans in policy and war. Listen to me. You are both my juniors, and what is more, I have mixed in the past with even better men than you, and never failed to carry weight with them. The finest men I have ever seen or shall see, men's like Perithous and Dryas, shepherd of the people, Cyanus, Exadius, and godlike Polyphemus and Aegeus' son, Thetis of heroic fame. They were the strongest men that earth has bred, the strongest men pitted against the strongest enemies, a savage mountain-dwelling tribe whom they utterly destroyed. Those were the men whom I left my home in Pylos to join. I travelled far to meet them at their own request. I played my independent part in their campaign, and they were men whom not a soul on earth today could face in battle. Still they listened to what I had said and followed my advice. You too must do the same. You will not lose by it. Agamemnon, forget the privilege of your rank, and do not rob him of the girl. The army gave her to him. Let him keep his prize. And you, my lord Achilles, drop your contentious bearing to the king. Through the authority he derives from Zeus, a regal king who has more than ordinary claims on our respect. You, with a goddess for mother, may be the stronger of the two, yet Agamemnon is the greater man since he rules more people. My lord Atreus, be appeased. I, Nestor, beg you to relent towards Achilles, our mighty bulwark in the stress of battle.
My venerable lord, no one could cavil at what you say,
replied King Agamemnon.
but this man wants to hold the scepter here. He wants to lord it all over us, to play the king and to give us each our orders, though I know one who is not going to stand for that. What if the everlasting gods did make a spearman of him? Does that entitle him to use insulting language?
Here the noble Achilles broke in on the king.
A pretty nincompoop and craven fool I shall be called if I yield to you at every point, no matter what you say. Command the rest, know me, I have done with obedience to you, and here's another thing for you to ponder. I am not going to fight you or anybody else with my hands for this girl's sake. You gave her to me, and now you take her back? But of all else I have beside my good black ship, you shall not rob me of a single thing. Come now and try, so that the rest may see what happens. Your blood will soon be flowing in a dark stream down my spear.
The two stood up when their war of words was over, and dismissed the assembly by the Achaean fleet. Achilles with Patroclus and his men made for his trim ships and huts, while Atreides launched a fast vessel on the sea, chose 20 oarsmen to man her, and after embarking the cattle to be offered to the god, fetched Chryseis of the lovely cheeks and put her on board. The resourceful Odysseus went as captain, and when everyone was in, they set out along the highways of the sea. Meanwhile, Agamemnon made his people purify themselves by bathing. When they had washed the filth from their bodies in the salt water, they offered a rich sacrifice of bulls and goats to Apollo on the shore of the unharvested sea, and savory odors mixed with the curling smoke and went up into the sky. While his men were engaged on the duties in the camp, Agamemnon did not forget his quarrel with Achilles, and the threat he had made to him at that meeting. He called Talthybius and Eurybates, his two heralds and obedient squires, and said to them,
Go to the hut of Achilles, son of Peleus. Take the lady Chryseis into your custody and bring her here. If he refuses to let her go, I shall come in force to fetch her, which will be all the worse for him.
He sent them off, and with his stern injunction in their ears, the two men made their unwilling way along the shore of the barren sea, till they reached the encampment and ships of the Myrmidons, where they found the prince sitting by his own black ship and hut. It gave Achilles no pleasure to see them. They came to a halt, too timid and abashed before the prince to address him and tell him what they wanted. But he knew without being told and broke the silence.
Heralds, ambassadors of Zeus and men, I welcome you,
he said.
Come forward, my quarrel is not with you but with Agamemnon, who sent you here to fetch the girl Briseis. My lord Patroclus, will you bring the lady out and hand her over to these men? I shall count on them to be my witness before the happy gods, before mankind, before the brutal king himself, if the Achaeans ever need me again to save them from disaster. The man is raving mad. If he had ever learnt to look ahead, he would be wondering now how he is going to save his army when they are fighting by the ships.
Patroclus did as his friend had told him, brought out Briseis of the lovely cheeks from the hut, and gave her up to the two men, who made their way back along the line of ships with the unhappy girl. Withdrawing from his men, Achilles wept. He sat down by himself on the shore of the grey sea and looked across the watery wilderness. Then stretching out his arms, he poured out his prayers to his mother.
Mother, since you, a goddess, gave me life, if only for a little while, surely Olympian Zeus the Thunderer owes me some measure of regard, but he pays me none. He has let me be flouted by imperial Agamemnon's son Atreus, who has robbed me of my prize and has her with him now.
Achilles prayed and wept, and his mother heard him from where she sat in the depths of the sea with her old father. She rose swiftly from the grey water like a mist, came and sat down by her weeping son, and stroked him with her hand and spoke to him.
My child, why these tears?
She asked him.
What is it that has grieved you? Do not keep your sorrow to yourself, but tell me so that we may share it.
Achilles of the swift feet sighed heavily.
You know, and since you know, why should I tell you the whole story?
He said.
We went to Thebe, Eetion's sacred city. We sacked the place and brought back all our plunder, which the army shared out in the proper way, choosing Chryseis of the lovely cheeks as a special gift for Atreides. Presently, Chryseis, priest of the archer god Apollo, came to the ships of the bronze-clad Achaeans to set free his daughter, bringing a generous ransom and carrying the chaplet of the archer Apollo on a golden staff in his hand. He importuned the whole Achaean army, but chiefly its two leaders, the Atreides. The troops showed by their applause that they wished to see the priest respected and the tempting ransom taken, but this was not at all to Agamemnon's liking. He sent him away with a stern warning in his ears, so the old men went home in anger. But Apollo listened to his prayers because he loved him dearly, and let his wicked arrows fly against the Argive army. The men fell thick and fast, for the god's shaft rained down on every part of our scattered camp. At last, a seer who understood the archer's will explained the matter to us. I rose at once and advised them to propitiate the god. This made Agamemnon furious. He leapt to his feet and threatened me. The bright-eyed Achaeans are taking the girl to Chryseis in a ship with offerings for the god, while the king's messengers have just gone from my hut with the other girl, Briseis, whom the army gave to me. So now, if you have any power to protect your son, go to Olympus, and if anything you have ever done or said has warmed the heart of Zeus, remind him of it, as you pray to him. For instance, in my father's house, I have often heard you proudly tell us how you alone among the gods saved Zeus, the darkener of the skies, from an inglorious fate, when some of the other Olympians, Here, Poseidon, and Pallas Athena, had plotted to throw him into chains. You, goddess, went and saved him from that indignity. You quickly summoned to high Olympus the monster of the 100 arms whom the gods call Briareus, but mankind Aegeon. A giant more powerful than even his father. He squatted by the son of Kronos with such a show of force that the blessed god slunk off in terror, leaving Zeus free. Sit by him now, clasp his knees and remind him of that. Persuade him, if you can, to help the Trojans, to fling the Achaeans back on their ships, to pen them in against the sea and slaughter them. That would teach them to appreciate their king. That would make Imperial Agamemnon, son of Atreus, realize what a fool he was to insult the noblest of them all.
My son,
Said Thetis, bursting into tears.
was it for this I nursed my ill-starred child? At least they might have left you carefree and at ease beside the ships, since fate has given you so short a life, so little time. But it seems that you are not only doomed to an early death, but to a miserable life. It was indeed an unlucky day when I brought you into the world. However, I will go to snow-capped Olympus to tell Zeus the Thunderer all this myself, and see whether I can move him. Meanwhile, stay by your gallant ships, keep up your feud with the Achaeans, and take no part in the fighting. Yesterday, I must tell you, Zeus left for the wide ocean to join the worthy Ethiopian gods at a banquet, and the gods went with him. But in 12 days' time, he will go back on Olympus, and then you may rest assured that I shall go to his bronze palace, where I will throw myself at his feet. I am convinced that he will hear me.
Thetis withdrew, leaving Achilles to his grief for the gentle lady who they had forced him to give up. Meanwhile, Odysseus and his men reached Chryseis with the sacred offerings. When they brought their craft into the deep waters of the port, they furled the sail and stowed it in the black ship's hold, dropping the mast neatly into its crutch by letting down the forestays, rowed her into her berth, cast anchor, made the hawsers fast, and jumped out onto the beach. The cattle for the archer god were disembarked, and Chryseis stepped ashore from the seagoing ship. Odysseus of the nimble wits led the girl to the altar and gave her back to her father.
Chryses,
He said,
Agamemnon, king of men, has ordered me to bring you your daughter and to make ceremonial offerings to Phoebus on the Danaans' behalf in hope of pacifying the archer king, who has struck their army a grievous blow.
Then he handed the lady over to her father, who welcomed the daughter with joy. The offerings destined to do honor to the god were quickly set in place around the well-built altar. The men rinsed their hands and took up the sacrificial grains. Then Chryses lifted up his arms and prayed aloud for them.
Hear me, god of the silver bowl, protector of Chryses and of holy Scylla, and Lord Supreme of Tenedos. The last petition found you kind indeed. You showed your regard for me and struck a mighty blow at the Achaean army. Now grant me second wish and save the Danaans from their dreadful scourge.
Thus the old man prayed, and Phoebus and Apollo heard him. When they made their petitions and scattered the grains, they first drew back the animals' heads, slit their throats, and flayed them. Then they cut out slices from the thighs, wrapped them in folds of fat, and laid the raw meat above them. These pieces the old priest burnt on the faggots, while he sprinkled red wine over the flames, and the young men gathered round with 5-pronged forks in their hands. When the thighs were burnt up, and they had tasted the inner parts, they carved the rest into small pieces, pierced them with skewers, roasted them thoroughly, and drew them all off. Their work done, and the meal prepared, they fell to with a good will on the feast, in which all had equal shares. When their thirst and hunger were satisfied, the stewards filled the mixing bowls to the brim with wine, and after first pouring out a few drops in each man's cup, served the whole company. And for the rest of the day, these young Achaean warriors made music to appease the god, praising the great archer in a lovely song, to which Apollo listened with delight. When the sun set and darkness fell, they lay down for sleep by the hawsers of their ship. But as soon as dawn had lit the east with rosy hands, they set sail for the great Achaean camp, taking advantage of the breeze the archer god had sent them. They put up their mast and spread the white sail. The sail swelled out, struck full by the wind, and a dark wave hissed loudly round her stem as the vessel gathered way and sped through the choppy seas, forging ahead on her course. Thus they returned to the great Achaean camp, where they dragged their black ship high up on the mainland sands and underpinned her with long props. This done, they scattered to the several huts and ships. Now all this time, Achilles, the great runner, the son of Peleus, had been sitting by his fast ships, nursing his anger. He had not only kept away from the fighting, but attended no meetings of the assembly, where a man can win renown. He stayed where he was, eating his heart out and longing for the sound and fury of battle. 11 days went by, and at the dawn of the 12th, the everlasting gods returned in full strength to Olympus, with Zeus at their head. Thetis, remembering her son's instructions, emerged in the morning from the depths of the sea, rose into the broad sky, and reached Olympus. She found all-seeing Zeus sitting away from the rest on the topmost of Olympus' many peaks. She sank to the ground beside him and put her left arm around his knees, raised her right hand to touch his chin, and so made her petition to the royal son of Cronos.
Father Zeus, if ever I have served you well among the gods, by word or deed, grant me a wish and show your favor to my son. He is already singled out for early death, and now Agamemnon, king of men, has affronted him. He has stolen his prize and her for himself. Avenge my son, Olympian judge, and let the Trojans have the upper hand until the Achaeans pay him due respect and make him full amends.
The Marshal of Clouds made no reply to this. He sat in silence for a long time, with Thetis clinging to his knees as she had done throughout. At last, she appealed to him once more.
Promise me faithfully and bow your head, or else, since you have nothing to do so, refuse. And I shall know that there is no god who counts for less than I.
Zeus, the cloud gatherer, was much perturbed.
This is a sorry business,
He exclaimed.
You will make me fall foul of Here when she rails me about it, as she will. Even as things are, she scolds me constantly before the other gods and accuses me of helping the Trojans in this war. However, leave me now, or she may notice us, and I will see the matter through. But to reassure you, I will bow my head, and the immortals recognize no surer pledge from me than that. When I promise with a nod, there can be no deceit, no turning back, and no missing of the mark.
Zeus, as he finished, bowed his sable brows. The ambrosial locks rolled forward from the immortal head of the king, and high Olympus shook. The affair was settled, and the two now parted. Thetis swung down from glittering Olympus into the salt sea depths, while Zeus went to his own palace. There the whole company of gods rose from their chairs in deference to their father. There was not one that dared to keep his seat as he approached. They all stood up to greet him. Zeus sat down on his throne, and Here, looking at him, knew at once that he and Thetis of the silver feet, the daughter of the old man of the sea, had hatched a plot between them. She rounded instantly on Zeus.
What goddess has been scheming with you now, you arch-deceiver?
She asked.
How like you it is when my back is turned to settle things in your own furtive way. You never of your own accord confide in me.
Here, do not expect to learn all of my decisions.
The father of men and gods replied.
You will find the knowledge hard to bear, although you are my consort. What is right for you to hear, no god or man shall know before you. But when I choose to take step without referring to the gods, you are not to interrogate me about it.
Dread son of Kronos, what are you suggesting now?
Said the ox-eyed queen.
Surely it was never my way to pester you with questions. I've always let you make your own decisions in perfect peace. But now I have a shrewd idea that you have been talked round by Thetis of the silver feet, the daughter of the old man of the sea. She sat with you this morning and clasped your knees. This makes me think that you have pledged your word to her to support Achilles, and let the Achaeans be slaughtered at the ships.
Madam, you think too much, and I keep no secrets from you,
replied the cloud compeller.
But there is nothing you can do, except to turn my heart even more against you, which will be all the worse for yourself. If things are as you say, you may take it that my will is being done. Sit there in silence and be ruled by me, or all the gods in Olympus will not be strong enough to keep me off and save you from my unconquerable hands.
This made the ox-eyed queen of heaven tremble, and curbing herself with an effort, she sat still. Zeus had daunted all the other heavenly ones as well, and there was silence in his palace. Till at last Hephaestus, the great artificer, spoke up in his anxiety to be of service to his mother, white-armed Here.
This is unbearable,
he exclaimed.
A pretty pass we are coming to, with you two spoiling for a fight about mankind and setting the gods at odds. How can a good dinner be enjoyed with so much trouble in the air? I do advise my mother, who knows well enough what is best, to make her peace with my dear father, Zeus, or she may draw another reprimand from him and our dinner be entirely spoiled. What if the Olympian, the Lord of Lightning, the strongest god in heaven, should feel disposed to blast us from our seats? No, mother, you must humbly ask his pardon, and the Olympian will be gracious to us again.
As he said this, Hephaestus hurried forward with a two-handled cup and put it in his mother's hand.
Mother, be patient and swallow your resentment,
he said,
or I that love you may see you beaten, here in front of me. A sorry sight for me, but what could I do to help you? The Olympian is a hard god to spit oneself against. Once before, when I was trying hard to save you, he seized me by the foot and hurled me from the threshold of heaven. I flew all day, and as the sun sank, I fell half dead in Lemnos, where I was picked up and looked after by the Cynthians.
The white-armed goddess Hera smiled at this, and took the beaker from her son, still smiling. Hephaestus went on to serve the rest in turn, beginning from the left, with sweet nectar that he drew from the mixing bowl. In a fit of helpless laughter seized the happy gods as they watched him bustling up and down the hall. So the feast went on, all day till sundown. Each of them had his equal share, and they ate with zest. There was music, too, from a beautiful harp played by Apollo, and from the muses who sang in turn delightfully. But when the bright lamp of the sun had set, they all went home to bed in their separate houses that the great lame god Hephaestus had built for them with skillful hands. Olympian Zeus, Lord of Lightning, also returned to the upper room where he usually slept, and settled down for the night, with Here of the Golden Throne beside him.